Hello, take three. Welcome to tonight's live about Bufo, death in all its forms. We've just cut out twice in a row. This doesn't work, then I'm just going to take it as a cosmic sign that I have nothing of interest to say. Hello, Mo.
Hello.
Isn't that funny that we're talking about death and then the live died?
Yep.
I don't know what to do. Should we start again?
Did it completely die so that we
It
didn't
just
get the recording?
it disappeared.
Oh
It
no.
floated off into another dimension. Okay, in a nutshell, it's been a big day, lots of big feeling. In fact, it's been a really big, intense week for us. Probably one of the hardest weeks that we've had professionally in a very long time. And you and I, in our own separate ways, have had experiences of confronting death in a more literal sense than we're going to talk about tonight. But through those experiences, had a window of what a gift it is to die or to nearly die. I have spoken about quite openly that I'm a suicide survivor, and that was a really powerful experience to be so broken, low, depressed, feeling so hopeless that I wanted to end my life. And still, even in that place, the relief that came with being here and the subsequent waves of relief at getting to do this crazy thing called life over and over again, and the realization that life is this beautiful, precious, magical gift. Every breath is a precious gift that no amount of therapy, inner work, self-reflection, suffering could get me to it. It took looking and experiencing my own mortality to know that this life is so special, and you have experienced that in a very different way. But I see real commonalities in both of our character and our resilience and our approach to life that I've no doubt comes from those separate but shared experiences. Would you like to talk a bit about your journey, Mo? Because it is one that is so very inspiring.
Yeah. In take one, you said you've heard it like 900 billion times. So this is
900 billion and one.
and one. So back in December 2014, I was 31 at the time. I got diagnosed with a stage 4 bowel cancer. And in terms of cancer, that's really advanced. Survival chances are low. 1 year later, that cancer became terminal, which meant there were no more treatment options available, and it looked like a path of death where there's going to be more pain and inevitable death. And during those experiences, at the age of 31, 32, 33, I'm confronting death. A few years earlier, I was just saying how, I was planning my entire 30s, buy a house, get married, and all of that. Yet here it was just, will I wake up tomorrow morning? I'd go to sleep each night questioning, will I sleep? And if I did, would I wake up? And every morning I would wake up saying, thank you for this life. And research showed that there was a brand new drug in development that my doctors were saying, if we could get this drug, you have a really good chance of surviving. Only problem, it wasn't on the NHS, and that survival instinct that we have of wanting to live was activated in me. And with the help of my friends and family, we had to raise £200,000 to get this drug. We raised the money, I had the treatment, and the cancer went away. And we started raising money in 2016, and here we are over 10 years on. I'm in the greatest shape of my life, and grateful, as you were saying, for to be able to take, it's alchemy, going into the darkness and coming out on the other side. And there are many models to describe it, the hero's journey, confronting with the wound, and to be able to do this work and share, it's a privilege. And yeah, 100%, those experiences do give perspective and context for, you described this as one of the toughest weeks professionally in recent times. And when you've experienced some of the stuff that we've experienced, to then encounter them again, that resilience, that character, the perseverance, to stay connected is there for sure.
For sure. And not everyone will experience those things in this lifetime, certainly not as young as you or I, and nor would I want them to. But the Indigenous tribes that work with Bufo literally talk about it as a death and rebirth initiation. It is a way to experience what it's like to look at the doorway to death and reap the benefits that come with having a near death experience. And that's something that's spoken about extensively, what it brings up in us when we really confront our own mortality, because we all like to think that we're not scared of death, that we understand we're going to die, but we position death as something that happens over there. And over here, it's not happening to me and it's not happening to me right now. When it happens, then I'll deal with it, but I don't need to think about it for now because it's just, part of reality. But actually, in those moments when we come so close to it, it really forces us to look at every single decision that we're making, the way that we're living our life, what we've prioritized, what we've deprioritized, and say, am I living in complete alignment with what my soul is here on this planet to be doing? And if not, wake the fuck up. And that's so powerful, to just be jolted back into reality by the experience of almost dying. That's death in its physical form, but we're also talking here about death in an egoic sense, the complete dissolution of all the narrative stories that we've told ourselves about who we are throughout the course of our lifetime. Instead, what remains underneath is access to the true self. And we talk about this a lot. We don't want the ego offline forever. We want access to what sits beyond it, so we can access our truth, so we can see beyond our fears, our doubts, our worries, and continue to show up the version of ourselves that's meant to be here right now.
Yeah, just reflecting on that, we want a healthy ego. What happens when, or my experience of when I took the bufo and that ego dissolution happened, where I was consciously aware but the body wasn't there, and connecting with, we can call it the soul, we can call it the higher self, or there are no words to describe this, that connection to the infinite. Ego comes back with memory of that, with knowing that there is something bigger than the ego. The ego day to day wants to think it's the center of who we are, but when you have that experience, you can be guided by something else, and that guidance in day to day life can come through synchronicity, it can come through dreams, it can come through symbols, providence, is that the word? Serendipity, like there's so many things can give us that connection. Bufo for me has been the most profound connection to the divine.
What was it about the experience that felt like a connection to the divine? Can you
Yeah,
talk a bit about it?
it was v- the feeling of peace, total, I want to say no fear. There was absolutely no fear. So there was just pure love, just being held in the light, the luminous, ethereal sphere, like the realm that I was in. Just all the troubles, all the worries, all the day-to-day stuff just vanished. It was no longer there, and to just be held um, in pure safety, pure love. those are some of the words that can give a sense of my experience. But it's ineffable. You can't describe it until you're in that experience. And just a knowingness that the day-to-day life, there is pain, there is struggle, there is, but on the other side, there's none of that. And that stays with me day to day. Like on a personal level, there's so much, there's a lot of challenge in my life right now. But knowing that realm and having that connection to that realm without doubt just keeps me as focused and at peace while navigating the challenge. It's not like I'm bypassing and ignoring the day-to-day realities because I'm there in the trenches, wherever the trenches are, and there are so many of them right now. But without losing that connection. And when I look back, it was that Bufo moment, or moments, um, that allow me to hold that.
Mm. Yeah, so beautiful, Mo, and I'm really getting to witness you in process, like going through extreme adversity in this realm, and yeah, it's just super inspiring to see your strength, your resilience, and the way that you continue to show up in circumstances that would break 99.99999% of people. And yeah, to know that Bufo has been a part of that is very special too. I think one of the things I experienced with my own journeys with Bufo was in thinking about like what happens after we die, was this feeling of like when everything dissolves, something still remains. And I felt I'd mused about the idea of past lives, next lives, the soul prior to Bufo, and I was conceptually on board with it. But in the Bufo realm, I really experienced it for my whole body to disappear, and yet something's still there. And
Mm,
this knowledge that, an experiential knowledge that when I take my last breath, something will still be there. And that awareness made me think about so many different things like karma and ancestral karma and the way that things pass from one generation to the next. And I've always been quite rebellious and not always the most considerate of the impact of my actions. But through that experience, it made me want to be a better person, and it made me want to do more good in the world because it felt like the disconnection from my solo personal reality and the awakening to the awareness that I'm part of this interconnected web that has been around for such a long time before me and will continue to be around for generations to come. And so with that awareness comes the knowledge that each one of my actions has an impact that will ripple out. And I
mm,
want that to be a positive one. I want to sleep well at night knowing that I'm doing what I can to serve humanity, and that doesn't come from doing fun things that are impulsive but lack forethought.
yeah, and you're doing that, Melissa. Like the commitment to this work, like leaving the safe corporate legal world to this uncertain underworld, like the underworld, right? We're in of the unconscious, unpredictable, the wild. You're doing that, so which is super inspiring as well.
Oh, thank you. It was after Bufo as well that I finally quit my job. 2 months after, 2 months, maybe even 1 month after. for a long time I juggled both, and told myself I'm going to do both. And there's still a part of me that would love to go back and cash in on a few fat paychecks. Um, but yeah, it was the that my ego really held on to that idea of being a lawyer because it was status and clout. It was approval from my family. It was uh, an innate respect of my intellect that people assume if you say you're a lawyer, they think, oh, you must be intelligent. Whereas when you say you smoke toad venom, people think you're completely insane. And so there was a real act of surrender to just say, okay, like, I don't care what people think about my intelligence. Um, and to be willing to be judged and trolled
Mm,
relentlessly, so much trolling coming in at all angles for my
yeah.
existence and my life choices. And you've seen how it's I've had everything over the years, from being called a coercive cult leader to like trust fund child, and everything in between. But that loosening of the grip on the way that I want to be perceived by the world has allowed me to just live the life that I want to live, and not be contorted or squeezed or have to shrink in response to the hateful of online communities.
Yeah, and you spoke about death and rebirth, like that. Your story is an example of that. You allowed the identity of the legal world die for the medicine woman to flourish and soar. That's like one of those death and rebirth, and along the way, there's so many more,
Mm.
so many more.
Not anymore. Yeah.
And it's just on the point of, like, some of us grew up very religious, with the ideas of heaven and hell. If you do good, you go to heaven. If you do bad, you go to hell. And I remember hearing, I don't know who it was, people want to go to heaven, but they don't want to die to get there. And it's true. It's like none of us want to die, even though we want to get to a better place. And I know you've spoken a lot about we can create heaven on earth, um, in the past, and I believe it's a state of being, a state of mind. There are challenges all the time. Yet, if we can stay connected to that sacred, the soul, the higher self, it can really help us navigate and allow the ego to drive, but the soul giving it direction. And Bufo has been instrumental, I know, for me, and just hearing some of what you've just shared in your journey as well.
Mm, that's it. It's the willingness to die, like the willingness to die for what comes on the other side. That really the ego's fighting when it comes to Bufo. Oh no, I don't want to do that. It's like, if you can just say yes, so yes, I'll do it. You are welcomed into to heaven, and that doesn't automatically mean that every day of your life is going to feel like heaven. We're living proof that that's certainly not the reality. And yet, when you know what life can feel like, then that's where the integration comes in. And we start to think about every single day, how do I bring more of that energy into my life? And I've talked a lot about peace, and peace being this really important North Star for me in terms of my decision making, how I approach my relationships, conflict, the conversations that I'm having and not having, where my energy is going. And all of that comes down to experience how heavenly it felt to feel totally at peace. I'm willing to have the hard conversations, to do the work in the here and now, to bring my life back into equilibrium, and the suffering will occur and the hard times will come. But once you have that blueprint. It is addictive to chase it relentlessly and want to make more of your reality feel that way and move away from the things that take you further instead of the repeating cycles that bring more suffering and pain into our reality.
Yep.
Okay, Ray, well, let's leave it there before we get cut off again. It's amazing to speak to you as always. Thank you for your words, being who you are, the inspiring human being that you are.
Thank you.
And yeah, we've got a webinar on Sunday with Diego, who is serving the medicine at our upcoming retreats. If you have questions, there's a form you can use to submit them. It's free. It's 3 o'clock on Sunday. And we'll be back next week with another live. I don't know what it'll be about, but I'm sure the idea will land between now and then.
I'm sure it will. Thank you so much, Melissa, for
Thanks, Mo.
everything that you've been sharing and doing, and it's incredible work.
Oh, love you, Mo.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.